Hello and welcome into Bucs Insider presented by Ticketmaster. I am Scott Smith and I'm joined by staff writer reporter Brianna Dix. And no, this is not what this show normally looks like. Our excellent host Casey Phillips is a little under the weather,
yes.
So Bree is stepping in and Casey's probably sitting at home laughing at me trying to fill this host role. But onward we go. And you know what? I think the last laugh is probably on Casey because we have a really fun game to talk about from last weekend and an interesting one coming up. So I'm going to throw it right to you. Bucs win 20-17 in Minnesota. What are your biggest takeaways from that game?
I think the thing for me was the adjustments on both sides of the ball. This team came in with a chip on their shoulder and they played like it. You know, offensively, got off to a sluggish start, only had 95 yards from scrimmage in the first half. But I really think that touchdown connection between Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans before half really kind of flipped the switch. You know, Evans did what Evans does with the double move, hit the corner post for the touchdown. And then right out of halftime, Baker Mayfield led a methodical 9-minute drive culminating in a Trey Palmer touchdown. They really rallied, showed the perseverance, and I really think no one embodied that more than Baker Mayfield, lowering the shoulder for that third down, getting the first down, and that lethal stiff arm.
The angry run.
The angry run. Yes.
Which we get a good look out of here.
Oh, yes.
And what's he say to the guy? Get your weight up?
Savage. I love it.
So, yeah, that was a good start. Now, the defense also really kept them in the game, right, while the Buccaneers were trying to get it going on offense. Right.
And first, Justin Jefferson in the first half really exploited the voids in coverage, you know, on the shallow crossers, the skinny posts, the in cuts. He had 138 yards in the first half. And then second half, once again, like the offense, made the adjustments, and they held him to just 2 receptions for 12 yards.
That's something.
Yes. Big change. And then obviously the 3 takeaways that we're going to get into, I think really kind of helped that team stay in the game.
I agree with all of that. I would add one thing, and it's you kind of covered 2 phases of the game. It's the third phase of the game, the special teams. It was a really excellent start for the Buccaneers. You could see on coverage that they have succeeded in adding the speed that they talked about during the offseason.
Yes.
They wanted to add speed to the roster in general. I think you saw that especially on special teams, and that was really helpful when Jake Camarda was hanging, 60-yard punts high up in the air. Guys like Zion McCullum and Josh Hayes are meeting the return man as he's getting the ball. So it was a great game for the punter. And then obviously our new kicker, Chase McLaughlin, hits a 57-yarder. And the great thing about that was that Todd Bowles said that was just a normal decision for them. They did not have a hard time deciding because really that hung in the balance right there. If they don't make that field goal, there's 5 minutes left in the game and you're giving the ball to the Vikings almost at midfield. So you have to be really confident in your kicker. But they've seen him make them every day in practice. It was in a dome. There was no wind. So this is just a normal thing now. We didn't have that. This team didn't have that in the past. So that's a big change for the Buccaneers. So I would say special teams, when you win a game by 3 points and it's back and forth the whole time, if your special teams are that good, you can really call them a winning edge. Now, another guy I'd like to talk about, the Buccaneers kept 13 rookies on their active roster, which was amazing. 10 of them played in this game. Several of them made big impacts. One of them was Christian Izien, the rookie safety out of Rutgers, who is the starting slot corner. And just talk about him a little bit.
Yes, well, he had several key tackles in space, but then also I think the big thing was his goal line interception. He essentially stole the ball from KJ Osborne.
I still don't know how he did that.
I don't either. And I think really that play personified what the coaching staff has been preaching on finishing. Finishing at the top of rushes, finishing tackles, and he played through the whistle, took the ball away, and gave the ball back to the offense.
And we just got to see the clip there, and you saw at the end that he was hit kind of blindsided by Justin Jefferson. It's a legal play because he's the ball carrier, but it still was kind of shocking. I'm glad he held on to the ball, but we do know now it's Thursday and we've had our first injury report. He is in the concussion protocol. We'll have to see how that goes. That may mean he has to miss a game. Sometimes, if they pass the steps quickly enough, he can get out in time for the game. So we don't know yet. We'll know a little bit more after practice today, but that's just something to keep an eye on with Christian Izien. Now, another one of the Bucs defensive backs who we've already seen through the last 4 years making huge plays, Anton Winfield Jr. Homecoming to Minnesota. He was all over the field, was he not?
Yes. That he was. And I think one of my favorite plays, maybe other than Chris Godwin, the fingertip grab at the end, was the strip sack in recovery by Antoine Winfield Jr. And I feel like this play was the Todd Bowles exotic blitz package in true fashion. You had Kalijah Cansey that occupied 2 blockers kind of opened things up from teammates. Devin White fired through the B gap, quickly bypassed the Vikings fullback C.J. Ham, and was just a second behind Antoine Winfield, who shot through the C gap, knocked down Cousins, knocked out the ball, and recovered.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just reverting back to that free safety role. But I feel like what's kind of exciting is the coaching staff is still using him in the box a little bit to showcase that physicality and his closing downhill burst. But, man, what a game from him, and Devin White as well, who led the team with 12 tackles. You know, Todd Bowles specifically emphasized how well he did on limiting the Viking screen game. And I don't feel like there's many linebackers in the NFL who can plant their foot, pivot, and then flow to the opposite side of the field to drop a rusher in his tracks, and Devin White is able to do that, and we saw that against the Vikings.
So we just saw in the graphic there, Antoine Winfield Jr. has 10 sacks since 2020 when he came into the league. That's the most by any defensive back in the NFL in that span. He's just really good at it. And if you want to see, you mentioned it a little bit, a breakdown of how that play worked, you go to Buccaneers.com and watch the film session with Rondé Barber. He breaks that down. Essentially, it became a 5-man rush, but all 5 guys were coming from the same side. And the fullback had to choose between Devin and Antoine Winfield. I guess I kind of just gave away everything Rondé said. But another thing, hey, as I said, I'm filling in as the host here, so I didn't get everything right. I forgot to mention when we were talking about Christian Izien that he's just the, if you don't count strike players from 1987, he's just the 4th player in Bucs history to get an interception in his very first game. The first one since 2000, I think I wrote that wrong because I think it was 2010, but in any case, first one, boy, I'm all over the place here, aren't I?
Way to go, Scott.
The first one since E.J. Biggers, who I remember well. The other 2 are before my time. Cecil Johnson was actually a linebacker. These guys are the only ones in team history who've had an interception in their very first game, so welcome to the NFL.
Already making history,
That's awesome. So, all right, great win. A road win to start the season is an awesome thing. Now the Buccaneers turn their attention to the Chicago Bears, who are coming here to Raymond James Stadium to play week 2 here. It's another former NFC Central foe for the Buccaneers. It's the Buccaneers are slightly favored, but only slightly favored at home, which means around the nation, people think this is going to be a pretty good matchup, a pretty close game. The biggest challenge for the Buccaneers has got to be stopping Justin Fields on the run, correct?
Yes. He is so shifty in the open field, and I think when you look at his numbers, what's most impressive is that Chicago doesn't really tailor their system around his mobility like the Eagles do with Jalen Hurts or like the Ravens do with Lamar Jackson with the RPOs, but the majority of his runs come on scrambles, that he still has that much success. He creates that other gap that defenders have to defend against, and I think one of the most telling stats for him that I read was as of December last year, there were 4 quarterbacks in the top 10 in forced missed tackles per attempt, and Justin Fields was number 1 at 30.3%. So for the Bucs defense, being disciplined in their run fits and setting the edge is definitely going to be a key against the Bears.
I mean, we know Todd Bowles is a very aggressive defensive play caller. It would not be surprising to see a good number of blitzes, as there were in week 1 against the Vikings. And you have to do that probably, and you want to try to rattle the young quarterback. But as you said, you have to be careful because you don't want to open up lanes for him to get out because this dude is fast. Last year, he was clocked at over 20 miles per hour on 9 carries, and the only player in the NFL who did that more often by 10 was Tyreek Hill, who's basically the fastest human in the league, right? You can see what the Bucs are up against there. And they also, as Coach Bowles pointed out, they have a real nice 3-headed backfield in Khalil Herbert, Dante Foreman, and the rookie Roshan Johnson, who had a nice opening game. So there's a lot for the Buccaneers defense to contend with in this game. But as we saw in week 1, they seem to be back in that swarming form, and really, I know their emphasis is on stopping the run because they were the best in the league for 3 years, and then last year kind of dipped a little bit, so they want to get back to that. So this will be a great test of that. We're all going to enjoy watching it, and we enjoyed having you watch us in our new roles here on Buccaneers Insider. Thanks for sticking with us here with the Buccaneers, and we'll see you next week, probably with Casey back in this spot right here.